Good evening, everybody. This is Wanda from Wander Wonders 906. Today's conversation takes us into the often struggles men face within the legal system. Our guest opens up about the toll of custody battles, courtroom corruption, and the heavy weight fathers carry, battling depression, substance use, and despair while trying to protect their families. Through his personal journey, he sheds light on the darker side of the family courts and the urgent need to prioritize children's happiness over systemic systemic conflict. This episode is not only about exposing injustice, but also about exploring healing, rebuilding, and fostering unity for parents and children alike. His story is a call to awareness, resilience, and change. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you for having me.
Happy to. Before we start, I usually ask, what's your favorite color and what's your favorite food?
Favorite color is blue. Favorite food is probably whatever's in front of me at the time.
I like that answer. Great.
Thank you.
Um, so I do have questions, but why don't you start off with just telling us the rundown of your story?
All right. Well, um, just let me put this out there real quick. This has nothing to do with necessarily my mother or my children, even though the backstory is hers. It's nothing to do to. I'm not here to put her down or say negative stuff, start anything. Everything I say, it's more for the parent that doesn't have custody of the child, going through those struggles. So just want to be clear with that right up front.
Okay.
So a little bit of about the backstory of it. Everything happens. When you go through a divorce or you decide to separate. A big thought in your head is the kids and how do you do it and everything. Um, After my ex-wife was diagnosed with cancer, we beat it. Two things happen. One thing everybody says one thing is they get closer to the family, they want to be part of the family, and they appreciate living. The other thing that can happen, they say a lot of times, is after you're getting a near-death experience, they want to explore, they want to do things. They don't want just that thing. Unfortunately, for us, it was the latter of it, option two. So when that happened, she asked to leave the family, which she said she wanted to be like I took her 20s away, so she wanted to be in her 20s. She wanted to go
Okay.
date against, and be fair, we got together when we were young, I think 19, 20. So yeah, we didn't really have 20s to do that. So she did that, but the deal was you take care of the kids, and whenever she wants to see him, we can see him. This was all before the court system, and it went great. And we went into detail. I'll just tell you quick. We had rules. Rule number one was never hold the children from each other. Rule number two, never introduce the children to another boyfriend or girlfriend of theirs for 8 months, a minimum of 6 months, just because he didn't want different people, which is understandable. Number three, never put your business in public. Number four, never use in front of the courts. One parent will never go for child support, and will always stay fair and do what's best for the children. Number five, never talk bad about other parents or about the parents in front of the children. And number six, will always do what's best for the children. Keep in mind, and that's the rules we made up. We wrote down when this was happening. So it was like great. She's like, okay, just promise me you're never gonna go for child support, and you'll never take my kids away from me. And she was crying at the time. She's like, I feel bad. I said, no, I get it. It's a hard thing. I said, I'll never keep the kids away from you. Great. So at that time, my kids stayed with me for about 3 years. She did come back here and there for a month, 2 weeks, and she'll take them and, be good to them. And that's all we wanted, and she did try to be part of there, but she just didn't want to be a full-time mother, she said. And that's understandable. So for 3 years, they lived with me. Everything was going good. Obviously, we're trying to go through a divorce, and the divorce was supposed to take 6 months. Ended up never taking 6 months for whatever reasons. But after a while, it came down to we're getting the final date. We met up. We met up in a courtroom, and she was like, "Okay, we're gonna do this." And she's like, "I'm gonna sign full custody over to you in front of the lady." And she's like, "Okay." Return, I will get taxes, just taxes. All I want is taxes and it, no child support. So everything was good. They set the final date. We went up to it, and everything was good. I mean, we didn't always see eye to eye on things, but we communicated and we got along. And I'm sure behind my back she said negative stuff, and I'm sure, and I'm behind her back I said negative stuff. But at the end of it, we had what's best for the children at all times. Um, the Easter before, you know, the whole custody battle started. Child's custody wasn't in even in the room. She came up, says, "Hey, boyfriend's out of town. Can I take the kids for Sunday and have them till Wednesday?" Of course. Brought them over. I was heading home. She's like, "Hey," calls me up. "You want to come over have breakfast, our Easter breakfast with us? The kids will like it," and we did. And we had a nice family time, like we did, and there was nothing wrong with it. At the end of it, I said goodbye, kissed my kids goodbye, gave her a hug, and we walked off. I walked off. Nothing was fine. Nothing was wrong. Everything was fine. Then down the road, what came our final date. Um, so the final date comes, and the day before I get a call from the court saying that we're no longer able to get divorced. So I'm like, "What do you mean? What's going on?" She goes, "Well, Mr. Castaneda, you can't get divorced now. She's pregnant by another guy." So I'm like, "Okay, what's that got to do with me? Why can't it?" She said, "Unfortunately, because you're married, you have to wait 6 months to do the whole custody thing." And I said, "Fine, whatever." She's like, "But you have to go talk to friend of courts." I said, "What are we talking about friend of courts for?" She goes, "Well, I think it's best if you go talk to him." I went down and talked to friend of courts, and that's where the story begins. Friend of courts says she's going for full custody and child support for the children now. So the battle starts. And I was caught like a deer in headlights, like, what's going on? So she's like, "Whatever happens, you basically got to go to court, you know, and you guys got to fight about it." And basically, is what she didn't say fight about it. She goes, "You guys got to go to court, decide, and the judge will decide everything. You guys go to your sides." So I'm like, "Fair enough. I'm not really sure what's going on." But they say it's you, the judge, and her. You guys are going to do what's best. I said, "Okay, that's fair enough." So as we go to court, it wasn't me, her, and the judge. It was me, her, the judge, and two of her friends. And it was basically an ambush at that time. Um, the job that they had was to paint me as a horrible person and her as a perfect person. And she's not a bad person. She does love her kids, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just the personas that she painted me in front of the judge was completely wrong, which I feel that is, in a lot of ways biased. But even in entering the courtroom with that, I got to go first. She asked if I can go first, so I go first. And like right off the bat, I knew I was in trouble. I had pictures. I tossed them on her table right then and there. The judge starts yelling at me, "Don't you ever scream!" Just yelling, You're trying to intimidate her, and you're trying to be mean to her, belittle her, and everything." And I'm just again I'm like I just put my and it's all on camera too. It's like I just put the pictures down. That's it. So at that point, everybody that told me it was going to be a one-sided court system for you, I'm just like, yeah, this is going to happen to me now. I mean, unfortunately, you don't really know what you're going to get into if you've never been to it.
Oh
And
my God, preach that,
yeah.
preach it.
And I grew up with a single mother, and I've heard a lot of stories about horrible parents that doesn't want to they're deadbeat, they're this. And you want to know what's the other story, what's the other side of it. But that's all I heard. And a lot of and I ain't gonna lie, in a lot of ways I kind of probably was biased towards it. I was like, well, they're just deadbeat dads or deadbeat parents. But after I went through it, I'm like, ooh, let's talk about a swift kick in the nuts. Now all of a sudden I told everybody, I was what you would call a father of the year. She said so, everybody else said so. I was a good dad. I started sporting events and programs for my kids. She gets pregnant by another guy. Next thing I know, I'm a deadbeat dad. How's that come? You know what I mean? So with that, when we started working with the system, we found out that for me, well, I guess I found out the system wasn't really designed to keep families together. It was designed to, well, make courts money. Courts get, I think they said, a national average of 66 cents off each dollar they collect from child support, and not counting your paperwork and everything else that you go through it. So with that, and then everything else, and you start to understand that the court system isn't to keep families together. It's a business. It's like, the way I experienced it, it was like doing business with the mob. They're saying, listen here, I'm going to put your hand on the table, a gun to your head. You sign the papers, and this is how it's going to be. If you don't like it, we're going to destroy you. So you have to sign the papers, and from then on, you come to, the decision was, like I said, they lived with me for 3 years. They got ripped out of their home, from their friends, their family. The school that they're in, they got ripped out of that school, went to another school that she wanted to choose, and the kids, like, lives flipped upside down. And it was like, all of a sudden, I didn't have a choice what I could do there. I didn't have a choice what school they went to. I was just a guy that donated sperm and now has to pay a paycheck. And it's a sad system with that you see a traditional system that says family courts. They're here to bring families together. Before the family courts, we've got along. Nothing was wrong. She seen the kids when she wanted. I had the kids. I never bothered her for money. I took care of the kids myself, and she did whatever she wanted to. It worked perfect. The kids were happy. And after going through the divorce and all that, the kids' life were starting to bounce back together. Slowly, but it was bouncing back together, and they were starting to be happy again until the courts threw them into this. And then you go through this, and it's just like, it's almost unreal what's happening,
It's traumatic.
It is. And, you become a secondary parent where you can see your kids on the weekend if they allow you to. What is that about, Every other, in my opinion, a friendly court, it should be 50-50 guaranteed. In
Yes.
certain situations, I guess there could be different, but, 50-50, no money, you go your way, but we're doing what's best for the kids. If the kids need braces, you're both pitching in. If they want to play hockey, you're both pitching. You know what I mean? And it just, I learned that they put a wedge between us. So like I said, we got along. Everything was good. We can eat together. We can spend time together for special functions without wanting not to be around each other, for small amounts of times anyways, I guess you could say. But as soon as they came in, you feel that wedge getting pushed through, and it pushes one powered side to one, and leaves the other one with nothing. And you're just like, well, I was a father for all my life, then all of a sudden, well, for the last 18 years, and now you're telling me I can't be that, but I can pay more money, I can give more, I can work, in my opinion, the friendly courts, it might sound, child support is a new form of slavery. It really is. If any way you want to look at it, it's a new form of slavery. I mean, you look at it as you're working endless hours. It doesn't matter what you do, what you get paid, long as they're getting paid. You know what I mean? And you just look at it. It's not for, and they said it doesn't have to be for the kids. It's just for the parent to make sure they have money in case the kids need something. You're just like, come on, really? So, it's a biased system that is filled with a lot of flaws, and it really needs to update it from the 1970s.
Oh, yes. I agree.
Yeah, it needs to have your updates. We need to have your new forms. I mean, back then we can understand, child support was for a mother that stayed home. At that time, it was women would stay home and the man would work. And at that time, we had unequal rights where a lot of women couldn't get jobs. So it was a tough time for that, and that's understandable. And you knew your kids were taken care of and whatnot. But then now you do it 25 years. If they're changing the way people go to bathroom, drink, or whatever they're doing, why can't they change the court system? Why can't they update it from the 1960s, the 1970s to the 2025s, where it's no longer wife sits at home or stays home with the kids and the father works all day. It's now both kids are working, You need both children. Children need both parents, mother and
Yes,
father.
I strongly, strongly agree. No, like I, both of them have something to offer. And I feel for you because I wish they would take into consideration who was there for the very beginning of the children's life, because that's a big impact.
It is, and I asked that same question, and the magistrate that took it said it doesn't matter what happened before. What matters is what happens now. What I say is what happens. So everything that
Mm,
happened before is doesn't count, which it's wrong. You know what
yeah,
I
it
mean?
fucking counts in here. It counts in here.
It does, and you look at somebody that's choosing what your kids are going to go through. You know, and for my kids, on the stand when I was there, I told him, I said, Mike, especially my middle boy, he's a great kid, but I'm like, he needs his dad. He's gonna drop out of school and get into drugs and alcohol or whatever else. Kids do what kids do when they don't have the authority figure there. You give a kid an inch, he's gonna take a mile. And unfortunately, with my kid, he's already, he dropped out of school, but he's going to the alternative now at least. But he's missing days. The difference with, and even when I went to court, I showed him, when he was with me, he had perfect attendance. Grades were up and down. What it is, they were in sports. Now he's with their mother. He's dropping out of school. He's getting, he's not doing any of that. He's going down the road that I told you guys he's going down to. And I said he needs his mom and dad, and he doesn't need the mother to alienate from the father from the children. I mean, I can't teach my daughter how to be a woman, just like she can't teach my boys how to be a man. And that's what I think the court system fails on. You know what I mean?
I do. I think they should take all of that into consideration. They should be monitoring those things. And there was something else that I wanted to say. Um, oh, I feel like they should do like a like a mental health.
Evaluation. Yeah.
Yeah, incorporate that somewhere in there. And then there was one more thing that I wanted to say. Shoot. Oh, keep talking. I'll
Oh,
think of it.
fine. Well, and when you come to it, and like I said, it's a one-sided business deal. So I don't know how true this is, but I was told by a couple different people that the judges or magistrates or whatever they were that go through these court cases, they get a percentage kickback into their retirement for each support payment they get from each parent. Or so I mean, think of thousands of parents. That's kickback, and I don't know how true that is. I've heard it from quite a few different people. I still have to look it up to get into it, but it wouldn't surprise me either. Like I said,
Yeah.
you put that in the perspective. Okay, you have two parents. They're getting along. They make it work. They may not like each other, but they make it work. It's what's best for the children. To all of a sudden you have a court system that steps in and they can't stand each other. They're on opposite sides, you know. So, and in my what I learned with the court system, is if you want to do what's best for your children, anybody that's going through it, if you want to do what's best for your children, and if you want to have a civilized relationship with the other parent, I really highly recommend staying away from front of the courts. It's really detrimental to the kids what's going to happen. I mean, like I said in that post I showed, I said, um, they rip these families apart and these kids suffer from it. Then all of a sudden, when the kid turns 18, they're in and out of jail because their dad wasn't able to be there because their mom alienated them, or their mom wasn't able to be there because their dad, and vice versa. It goes both ways.
Happens all the
Yeah.
time.
So now you're looking at, okay, we got the clients here. Now we got them, put them in and out of jail for the rest of their lives. It's a win-win situation for the court system, but it's a lose-lose situation for the families. You know what I mean? It's what happened to nurturing the families. What happened to put togetherness? I think the number one should be 50-50 custody. No money, no money. You both go your own ways. I mean, if you want, or I mean, even down the road, if someone has children and they're like, well, we need child support, I think, there should be a choice. You get either your taxes at the end of the year, you get to claim them, or child support. You know what I mean?
Hey,
or
that's a
vice
good
versa,
idea.
or vice
Yeah.
versa. Then that way, a lot of dads would still be, doing what they do. But, you know, it, I mean, even for me, when I got hit with child support, it started at $2,000 a month. I was getting 4,000. She was making, I think,
That's
8,000.
crazy.
Yeah, she was making 8. I was making 4, and they took 2,000 a month. I lost my car. I lost my job because I couldn't get back and forth. And, I went from the judge. She's like, I don't care. That's not my problem. I'm like, well, you're not understanding. I mean, you know, you're taking away. I have $1,000 left to live off. So that means I'm about $575 short a month to pay my bills. I mean, how do I live off that? Boy, she's like, I don't care. It doesn't matter what you need. It's what I can get for her so she can live. Like slavery, and it's wrong. You know what I mean?
Um, so just to be sure, what was the final say in the judgment for the custody of kids? She got full custody and you got some,
Every
or
other weekend.
every
Every
other
other week.
week?
Yeah. So I went from me living with the kids full time to the court date, and then a week later I got the thing in the mail. She will have full custody, custodian, parenting, and I will get my kids every other weekend. Imagine how heartbreaking that is.
I I
Yeah.
can. I can.
And it hurts, and you're just, what people don't know. It's like you're strong on the outside, but in silence, you'll cry like a baby when those kids aren't there.
Oh
You
hell
suffer.
yeah.
You suffer,
Oh
and
hell yeah.
then you're just looking like, what is this court system actually doing? It could have been 50-50, but no, instead they chose to rip families apart because it's a one-sided business deal. If me and her got along, we don't need friends in the courts, right? She doesn't need money, I don't need money, we just take care of our kids. Friend of courts no longer needed. But if friend of courts understands that, if you put a wedge there, well, guess what? You need us, and we can do what we want.
And I also think nobody really talks about how hard it is to go back, to try and go back after that decision is made and to change it so that it can be 50-50 or there's reunification. You know what I mean?
It is,
It's
and
it's traumatic. It's traumatic. I've always wondered why, like, you know, say like my sister was in a situation. She lost her son, and I always wondered why she didn't fight as hard as I
well,
thought she could have. But
that's a good
now I
question.
understand.
It's not that they're not fighting, and you know, I'm marked as a deadbeat dad. You know,
Yep.
I pay $24 a month. She tells. I get the real bill. What it really is, it's way more than that. It's like $1,000 now. We got it down to 1,000, but she says $24 a month. I don't get to see my kids. She'll tell everybody I don't want to see my kids while I go there, and I don't get to see them. And all that is a toll on you, and it takes a lot. And the reason is, and you got to look at it, from. I can only tell from my point of view. I can't tell from everybody's, but from my point of view, I'm paying over $1,000 a month for child support. I don't get to see my kids, and then they're like, "Well, you could pay $5,000 for a lawyer." How? I can't even. I'm eating ramen noodles. Right now, You can ask anybody out here. I walk to work a mile and a half away down. Just I can't afford a car anymore. I had a brand new car until all this happened. Now that I lost my car, now I walk to work. You know, the court's like, well, you have a minimum wage job. You need to get more money. I worked on the road, yeah, but how am I supposed to get to North Carolina? Walk? I mean, they're like, we don't care. You should be making more money for them. Like, you don't get, because of everything that took my car. You took this, you took that. So it's not that you're not fighting. It's the best way to look at it is, you see the boxing match of Rocky, no one, with
I,
Apollo Creed.
I haven't. I
Okay, well, you
haven't.
look at it, and it's up and down, and at the end of it, both of them can barely stand. They have to go to the hospital. It's a battle. It's a battle with the court system, but it's an unfair battle because you're not going to win, no matter what you do. Yeah, you can pay five. I talked to one lawyer. He's like, you can pay me, it's going to be $5,000 plus everything else, and I can get your kids 50-50 custody, but at that time, you're going to be about $20,000 in debt, and you're still going to be paying a lot of child support. So even though you have 50-50, you still have to pay a majority to the other custodian parents. So he says, "Are you gonna do what most people do?" I said, "What's that?" "Take and ask for some Vaseline while you're at it." He's like, I'm like, "Wow, thank you." And yeah, it's not like they're not trying. It's they're trying, but their battles are quiet. You see, everybody can see maybe my struggles through the mother of my children's, where I'm just a deadbeat dad. I don't want to be part of their life. I ignore them. I avoid them. I pay $24 a month. That's the story of the 9 o'clock news for my life. Only a few people really know the truth about that. They know that I go see my kids when I can and when she lets me. They know that I don't pay $24 a month. Like I said, I went from father of the year to deadbeat dad after she got pregnant. Yet I'm getting punished for it. You know what I mean? And not saying she's a bad. And I'm glad with her and her new boyfriend and engaged. I'm happy for him, and I'm happy she got the life that she wanted. I think it's great. But I feel that shouldn't be a slave to her. I shouldn't, because she can't afford to live on her own. I shouldn't have to pay for it. Everybody deserves to be happy and try the hardest. Okay, if the court system wants what's best, let the parents take care of it, and you be the mediator. If things get out of hand, okay, but you're going to see your kids every other weekend, or 50-50 custody, and let them sit in the back. Let them take care of if they're breaking into houses or something crazy, taking a knife. It gets out of hand. I get it. But unfortunately, until child support is moved out of the court system, it's nothing more than a business deal. And it will never be nothing more than a business deal, because you get custodian of the parents, of the kids. Well, guess what? That's the money. Why? Where does it say that? Where does it say that I have to give up half of your paycheck? I get in some situations, child support could be necessary. You have a kid with a person, and then you take off. You never want it. You don't want to be part of that kid's life. Well, child support should be there for that. That's a different situation. That's an exception to the rules. If you don't want to be part of that kid's life, you should, pay to help with that kid. Not saying all your money, but something. You should pay to help with that kid, and that's understandable. But that's, what here or there. That's not really what a lot of people are arguing about anymore. So.
What led you to finally speak up about this?
Well, when we went through it, she was pretty vocal about her side of the story through her Facebook and everything else of what she told everybody. It wasn't true, but that's her story. She's allowed to say it. And I wanted to go back and start, saying stuff. But at that time, my kids came to me crying and like, "Dad."
Aww.
I said, "What?" They're like, "We know the truth, what happened, and we know everything with Mom, but she's embarrassing us, and it's very embarrassing. Kids are coming up to us that you coached, calling you a deadbeat, cheating dad because she was telling everybody's parents. And if you can just be quiet for 3 years until we get out of school and a lot of this passes." And I was like, "All right, I'll put my foot in my mouth." So I was quiet about it, and I didn't say nothing out of respect for them, but I did write. Some reason I started writing. I started
Good.
writing books, songs, my new album that'd be coming out in May, and all that other stuff. And finally, with the court system, it started getting worse to the point where I was like, "Fuck you." I just don't care at this point. And the kids are like, "Do what you got to do. I don't care." And they were good with the music, and obviously the song "Baby Mama" was. Let's just say I didn't get to see my kids last week because of it.
Oh my gosh.
It is what it is, and I expected that was going to happen too. But what can you do in those situations?
Can she control that?
She can alienate, yeah. Like, well, I can tell you for one point of view, I had 10 different complaints on her. We went to court on it, and the judge heard my side of the story. Then they asked her, "What's your side of the story?" And she simply just turned to the judge and said, she said, "My kids don't like him." That's it. The judge turns to me and says, "Your kids don't like you, Mr. Castaneda. She did nothing wrong. She can leave. You can go to counseling." I said, why? Because she said your kids don't like you. I said, it's not really a reason. I mean, you go from kids that lived with me for 3 years, loved me, all of a sudden she can say what they want, and now I got to go to counseling for it if I want to see my kids again. Like, yeah, that's my ruling, and that's how it's going to be. So the court system was supposed to be for those types of situations. Hey, don't be alienating kids from each other.
Oh
Don't
yeah.
be dumb. And that's what it was supposed to be, but it's
Uh,
it's like talking to your walls. It's a cement wall or a hardboard floor wall. Nothing's coming back. You can give it paperwork, you can do your complaints, but ultimately nothing's going to happen, and unless you get a lawyer. Do you have the money to get a lawyer? So unfortunately, they can't, but they can. It's hard to. The court said it's hard to prove if they are or aren't. I simply look at it this way, and this is my point of view. Somebody told me before I started going into this, you can always tell a good person and a bad person. Same way as you can always tell a good parent and a good bad parent. It's like, how? How can you tell? If you have to fight for your kids, that tells you right there what kind of person you're fighting against. It's plain and simple. It's the saddest truth you're ever going to hear, which is true. Nobody should have to fight for their kids. It should never be an argument of, I get to see my kids. It shouldn't be, going, I always say it's like going, I said, my court system experience is like going to, getting bullied at school. You're getting bullied and picked on, right?
oh my
You go tell
God.
the
Yeah.
principal, the principal says, my son's doing nothing wrong. That did nothing wrong. That's your fault. Let it be. What do? You go back to the principal. But again, I use the analogy with the court system, and this is, I feel it's true. I don't blame her. I don't. I truly don't. She'll do what she does. I blame the court system. Just like if we all went to Walmart, everybody watching, listening, whatever. If we went to Walmart right now, and we seen a kid throwing a temper tantrum on the ground, begging for a toy, screaming and crying, and that parent says, you know what? I'll give it to you. He gets the toy, walks around the corner, sees another toy, says, I want this toy. And they say no, throws himself on the ground and cries. Do you blame the child for throwing the temper tantrum? Or do you
Uh,
blame the parent for allowing it to happen? You blame the parent. And that's the court system. She's throwing a temper tantrum. But it's the court system that will allow her to throw temper tantrums. It's the court system with the complaints, and the complaints saying, well, she just didn't want, the kids there at that time, or she wanted to do something special with, okay. I don't blame her. I don't hate her, I don't dislike her, but I do blame the court system. And I do have a bad taste in my mouth for the court system after I went through
oh
it.
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, it is what it is. And like you said, you fight in silence. Nobody sees your fight. No one sees your struggle. Your sister, nobody sees her cry. Nobody sees, you got to be strong. You go to court, like for me, I went to court. If, I was strong and I was upset, I'm mean aggressive.
Yeah.
She was strong.
Yes.
She was strong. She was
Yes.
upset. She was strong. She was upset. She was passionate and worried about the children. I had to break down and stand, because my kids were getting in trouble and they were losing. They were having a hard time. I was unstable. She broke down. She was caring mother that was worried about her kids. It was double meanings for everything that the court wanted. It didn't matter how it was. It was double. Again, it was more divide and conquer. I tell you, it's always divide and conquer with them. Does it have to be? No, it doesn't. It should be, all right, what's going on? I told everybody, it should have been me and her and the judge in the courtroom talked about what was best for the kids. How are we going to get 50-50 custody? How are we going to walk away with the children winning? Both parents happy, But both parents happy, the children win, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so sometimes, right?
Yeah. How did these experiences affect your mental health and sense of identity as a father?
Well, um, that's a good question. So mental health, I think everybody has to go through a journey. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
my journey was this, and it was tough. Do I believe that counseling should have been done at the beginning? I do in some ways, feel that everybody should have counseling, but in some ways I feel like counseling should be could be bad because they can use that against the courts for you. At the beginning,
Oh, that's fucking terrible.
it is. But at the beginning of it, it was rough. I mean, I wrote a song called "Silence is the Loudest," or "Louder Than Thunder." It was the day that they took the kids and she got full custody, and that week I couldn't see him. The next week I couldn't see him because she wouldn't let me. And it's the scariest dot because you sit there and you wonder, what do you do? You're a father for the last 18 years, and now you're not allowed to see your kids. You're not allowed to be part of their lives. You can't be that. So it in a sense, it's going to make you or break you. Everybody, if you step to the challenge, you're going to step up. I think you should be doing something in the process. For me, I started writing, children's books. I got a cartoon coming out here, the Little Baller series, and I got the children's books of it. I got my music. I did probably something different, more towards I'm an ambitious person, but out of spite. Okay, in my head, it's like, okay, you're not going to see me fail though. But at the same time, I felt that, me going through these struggles, you believe in God, I believe God put those, that He puts people in your life and takes people out of your life for a reason, And at that moment, I realized, one day, I have 3 kids. One day, one of them will be going through the same thing. So I got to face it as, what would Dad have done at this time? I got to, actions speak louder than words. So I got to prove, not just to myself, but to my kids, hey, your mom took me from everything. I don't hate her. I lost you kids. I can't see you because she won't let me. But guess what? I'm not going to stop, And, with everybody else, like, they're like, well, she's having a good life, They don't, you ever see a swan? You ever see a swan swimming around?
Oh, yeah.
You see a swan swimming around, they look so peaceful and delicate, don't they?
Oh, yeah,
But under the water, they're kicking up shit like no other. That's what I am. I may look like I'm doing nothing, but underwater, I'm kicking up hell. Watch me swim, And that's what people don't see. They don't see, when I go silent, it's not because I go silent because I can't handle it. It's because I'm working on things. I'm doing big things. I'm trying to do it for my kids. So mental health, I think if you find something, everybody has a fucked up life. Everybody has a fucked up childhood, a fucked up adulthood. Everybody does, right?
yeah.
But I think when you find something that you can do and make that time go by, it helps. And you become good at it. Some people become great at it, I think it's those people that, and I can see why alcohol and drugs do come in effect.
Oh, fuck yeah.
I never hit the bottle. I'm not a drinker. My focus was my kids and my success. So, but, I've talked to hundreds of fathers that are just like, what do I got to live for? I work, I can't see my kids. I can afford to get drunk, once a week or twice a week or however many times they do it. That's all I have. And it's sad. You know what I mean?
You also see, in my personal opinion, people go get themselves in relationships with people that they feel needed with, or they need to fix them, kind of to fill that void. That's what I see.
Yes. Well, see, and that's the thing, about, like I tell people about the personal journey. I'm a very motivational person. But, you know, my ex was big on it, and there's a couple girls that I dated that were kind of the same way. And, you know, when I jumped in after my separation with my ex, I didn't date for a while. And then I dated real quick, and it just wasn't working out. You know, and then it was kind of was I dated a couple of girls, and it was just like, it wasn't for me and that. So we kind of moved on. But what I realized is people try to fill the void. That's where alcohol
Oh
comes in.
yeah,
That's
hell
where
yeah.
drugs come in. That's where another person, whether it's a relationship or bed to bed, they jump in because they're trying to fill a void. But to be honest, I mean, for mental health, for your stability, for everything, you really you it's the scariest journey you're ever going to do. But you got to sit there and you got to find yourself in the dark. You got to fall in love with yourself again. You got to shake hands with yourself, hug yourself, say, hey, I'm happy to see you again. You know, when you go in the dark and you sit there and you talk, you know, you find yourself again, you become happy. You know, I don't chase happiness, I chase joy. You know, happy is an event. When you win the lottery, you're happy. You lose the money, you're sad. Joy, joy is something that you can just joy. When my ex-wife was going through cancer and I was working 12-hour shifts taking care of the kids and that, I didn't love it, but I enjoyed the moments we had together. I enjoyed spending time with my kids. That's why it's important to find joy, not happiness. So that's where I think a lot of people, they just, they're trying to fill that void of what was a family or what was a relationship. So it's, hey, you're single, I'm single, let's get together and we're happy. Now, neither one of them are happy because neither one of them found themselves. They just know that they don't have to be alone. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. What role does stigma play in preventing men from seeking help?
I don't know. I mean, I think that question goes for men and women for seeking help. I think it's more just,
Okay.
it's a ego thing, not necessarily ego, but I mean, you find a problem. In my experience, as with therapists, they can always find a problem with something. So sometimes you create more problems than there really is. Sometimes it's good for people to talk, and that's great. But sometimes, getting help is not what you need at that moment. So I don't have a long one on that.
That's okay. And a lot of these questions you already covered. I don't know if you'd like to cover more on
Yeah.
them, but how do corruption or unfair practices show up in custody battles? You kind of,
Well, yeah, and again, I think the corruption it's a one-side business deal. You have to have the front of the courts be needed to be there. If two parents get along, like I said, we made it for 3 years. Me and my kids' mother made it work for 3 years. We didn't need front of the courts. We just made it work. So when they came in, it was a whole different world. It was their rules. You know, I think money has a lot to do with it. I think, what is it? National wide, I think the family court system loans gets billions of dollars of kickback each year. So I read an article. I can't remember what article it was. It was online though. It said 3 women sued Arizona courts for child support. They got a letter back in the mail saying child support isn't for the children, because it was they're taking. So child support isn't for the children. It's to collect dividends from what they give out for the other parent getting help, such as bridge card, healthcare, whatever. So it was never designed. So healthcare was never designed, or it was never designed for the children. It was designed for the government to collect money back that they gave out. So they get billions of kickbacks each year. I mean, what kind of corruption is that? How could you not be, I guess, somewhat corrupt? I mean, if you're saying, okay, we need to make these two people hate each other, so we need to make this one pay money, and that way we can be, the middleman. If you go to a wholesale company, if you're a consumer, you go to a wholesale company itself, you don't need the salesman in the middle, right?
yeah.
So they become obsolete. So that's why I think corruption is a lot of it. I mean, realistically, I think it was like less than 46% of men get custody of their children.
Wow.
And that's an unfortunate bias, because, and then it goes back to the 1960s, 1970s, where women were the homemakers and men were the people working to make the homes. So the children were more equipped to be with mother, not father. So
Yeah.
it's a system that needs to be updated by far.
Which leads into our next question. What changes would you like to see in how courts handle family disputes?
Well, I think there's a lot of changes needed. I mean, realistically, family disputes, they got to look at where the disputes are coming. Okay, if they're coming one side, you kind of see it. Like I said, if you see a parent and they're fighting to see their kids, that could tell you right there what kind of
Yeah.
that's that's a big one right there. But I do think for the court system to get better, they can't get paid. They have to be a nonprofit. They get paid by the government just for doing their job. Not, if it's true they get a percentage kickback in their retirement, they shouldn't get 66 cents off each dollar returned to them from the government. There shouldn't be processing fees. I mean, If I was a person that had a business and I'm saying you got to come to me for this business, otherwise you can't do nothing, well, what do? Now I can tell you, you have to come to this company to do this business. You know what I mean? It has to be nonprofit. It has to be the best interest. I do think also for certain court situations where there's could be some unbiased behavior, I think they need a panel of maybe retired judges or
Oh my
judgments
gosh,
that's
yeah.
not around, that they'll sit there and they look at these tapes and be like, okay, that's a little unbiased. Okay, that's a little she's biased right there, or well, that's not fair. And that from there they should be reading in, okay, well, this judge is being very, and it is, I think, whether you have three from nowhere in this, like for Chippewa, so you have three from down in Detroit or somewhere in Michigan that was once a lawyer or judge or whatever that could sit there and look at like certain tapes that there's unbiased behaviors. But I also think that there should be people that show up in courtrooms are checking these videos out to where you you do secret shoppers to keep them honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That way they're always honest, and they don't know if they're going to be the next one being secret shopped of being a judge. With those in you know with those in the running, I think a lot can happen. I think you can make a big change. I think you can start uniting parents
I
instead of
agree.
dividing them, in my opinion.
I agree. I strongly agree. Um, okay. Um, what does rebuilding a family look like after conflict?
Well, and this is what I was telling you the with the friend of the courts that they're getting recurring clients because these children are coming from broken homes now and going through the court system. That all of a sudden they're going to jail and that. So I think rebuilding is the key word there, and I think you know I don't really think a lot of not for I can't speak for everyone, but for a lot of them, it's you don't rebuilding until the kids are out of the house, until the court system's out of it,
That's
and
so sad.
it is. You'll never have happiness in a family when money's involved, when alienation from a child is involved, and how can you rebuild when you have a dictatorship telling you what you can and can't do? How can you rebuild when you go to court saying they're not letting me see my child, and they're saying, well, she said your child doesn't like you. It doesn't matter. You can't rebuild from that. You start a new life. You can get hobbies. You can start doing stuff. You can start. I'm chasing my dream. Of doing what I'm doing. You can start that, but I mean, start as a new family. You're never gonna have it until the kids are out of the house, the money situation's gone, until the court system's no. And again, it's the court system's no longer in this. That's how you start rebuilding. Before that, there's very few that do, but usually it's because both parents see eye to eye and they're like, we don't want to take our kids on this journey. You know what I mean? And they're both looking out for what's best. But at that time, do you really need the friend of the courts if you want to do what's best for your children? You know what I mean?
Yeah. How do you, how can your parents prioritize children's happiness over ongoing disputes?
Well, I think if you both want what's best for the children, you just make it work. You know, it's just like a marriage or a relationship. There's give and take, um, and that's really all you can do. But again, you'll never have that with the court system. They're telling you that you don't matter because they're full parents, or they don't have to tell you what school they're going to. They can just take them out of any school. You can't be 100% part of that life. You know what I mean? You're pretty much pushed out of it. So, what I mean?
Yeah. What advice would you give to families trying to move past the pain of custody battles?
Personally, I would tell them to sit down with each other. If they can't, I would tell them, both of them hire the same lawyer. Let the lawyer figure out what's important for them. You two in a room with the same lawyer that you're both paying, you're going to get farther than you two in a courtroom, you know. sitting there saying, okay, maybe we need to do this was best. And it probably won't be one session or whatever, but
Oh
it's,
yeah.
it's okay. You ever see Wedding Crashers?
Yes.
The beginning, they're divorce lawyers, negotiators or whatever, just like that. They're there to trying to make sure everything goes equal in both ways. And I think, realistically, that'd be important to. I personally think if you want to save your family and save the trauma ties in future from your kids, keep front of the courts out of it 100%. If you're really desperate where you guys were trying to kill each other, shoot each other, breaking each, that's a different story. But for the average parent that just wants both be happy, keep away from them. I talked to a couple parents where they're like, we just got a lawyer, and me and the ex sat next to each other across different sides of the table, and it was this, it was this, it was this, and that was it. You know, and they got along. They still get along, and things are good. They're not great, but I mean, they get along.
Yeah.
But again, they kept the court system out of it. You know.
You've got some really good ideas. I think that you would be a great advocate for all of this. And I wish that they kind of had an advocate for when you're going through it, because you really don't know what to expect. And like you said, you can get ambushed. And
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, I didn't see that coming, and I would have never seen that. I mean, if you asked me, even when we started the separation part, if any of this would ever happen, I would say you're crazy. And some people said, you get a lawyer right away. I was like, she's not like that. We're good. Well, and it wasn't necessarily her. Like I said, I don't blame her. I blame the court systems for allowing it. And for instigating it. You know what I mean? And that's they instigate it to where you need them. So
I don't know about this question. What steps can communities take to support families beyond the courtroom? How do you feel about that question?
well, the first thing I can tell you out of experience is, you know, people love gossip. And the best story is the most exciting story, no matter what it is. It's the most exciting story. So I think it's important, like in my case, when the parents are hearing this from another person, first off, their children doesn't need to know, because their children don't need to be telling them other parents, the other kids that's going through this, what their dad is or what their mother is or what their parents doing. That's not their business. I think keeping things to a minimum, no matter what one person's out there yelling, crying wolf loud. I think, how traumatizing that was for my kids to hear that all the time. They knew it wasn't true. I knew it wasn't true. And some of the kids I coached since they were kids were saying that, but their mothers were saying that, and I think that's where, it's just the best story. So everybody wants to hear it. It doesn't, regardless if it's true or not, it's just
It doesn't help.
top story. And it doesn't help. And, my kids were traumatized by it, and they had to go, and we switched some schools even because of it.
Wow.
So I think that for community help, I think, I've talked to a lot of fathers and, even mothers, and they're going through it too, and I tell everybody, and even everybody on here, this is a story from my point of view, my side, what I dealt with. They don't have to believe it. I think it's important to hear both sides of the story before you believe something, and then you make your own judgment on it. That's what's important. But nowadays, people are always, well, this is all over Facebook, and that's what I tell, people. Facebook or TikTok, it's a medium platform of what people's lives want to be, not what they are. It's what
Oh
they
yeah.
want to be. You pull back the curtain, it's a whole different world.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, community involvement, I think, whether it's you talking to a group of guys in a bar room or whatever, you're comfortable playing a game of pool, hanging out, going to a group, I think that does help. There wasn't a ton of that stuff when I first started going through this. For men anyways, there was a lot of women's groups. But I think it's important that you bridge the gap between families and the men and women, because I think a lot of it is like, with social media, with court system, it's divide and conquer always. It's let's split them up and let's get them against each other and watch what kind of fight happens. So, for anybody that's going through this, talk to somebody that went through it. Take notes. Don't use the they're not like that'll never happen to me. I did that. Trust me, it could happen. Not saying it will, but it can. Anything can happen to you. You know what I mean?
Anything can happen. That's a good motto.
Yeah.
What do you hope listeners take away from your story in this conversation?
My honest to God hope is somebody that's a couple that's going through this, are starting to go through this or think about going through this. I want them to sit down and like talk to each other before they go through this. Talk about what it's going to bring with the court system. Now, the court system is designed to everything's going to be happy. We're going to take care of things, but it's going to be far from that. I think if they can figure out and deal with it with each other, with keeping the front of the courts out of it, they're going to be more happier, and I think it's going to be less trauma on the children and everybody but around them. That's from my point of view. That was my opinion. Yeah, it communicates. I mean, I hope somebody just sits there and is like, okay, you know what? We're talking about divorce. Maybe we won't try this, and try it yourselves, and it will go a lot better, a lot smoother if you both want it, and if you both want what's best for the children. So I can tell you, once you open Pandora's box, you remember what happened there?
No, but I hear about it.
There you go. Yeah. What was it good? Plagues and everything.
um, I have to compliment you on staying so respectful and just very, I don't know what the words are, but basically respectful, and for all around all aroundness, if that makes sense, because you covered a little bit of everything and you weren't disrespectful in the least. And it's so hard because it's all very powerful and very emotional. So I give you props for doing that.
No, I appreciate it. And like I said, this happened to me. I mean, the only way you learn is from somebody that went through it or going through it yourself. Depends on how you want to do it. And this was never to put down my children's mother. I don't say her name because it's not, it's relevant. It's
Yeah.
not. And like I tell everybody, my music, my books and everything, they were never shotgun towards her to hurt her, but those were feelings that I went through.
This is how you felt.
And I'm allowed to tell my story. If you got, and I'll tell everybody, if you don't like it, change this channel, but that's what I went through. That's my story, you know. My plan is one day sell my story to Tyler Perry. my life's always been like a Tyler Perry movie. But I also, for children, I have some books coming out next. I have 7 books being released between next year and the
Wow.
year after. The Little Baller series. The first one's is out. The Little Baller, the Tale of a Little Brother is the first one. But 3 of those books I have as therapy books for kids. Uh,
Oh my gosh.
so one of them is Mama What's Wrong, which is about the little baller, and this takes them off the basketball court, but into a real life situation because the stories are all about my children and my youngest boy and what they went through. So, well, one of them's Mama What's Wrong about the he dealt with his mom going through cancer, the ups and downs, and his mom's going to live to see tomorrow. What is cancer in the eyes of a second, third grader? That, and I have that one, and I have another one called Goodbye London about his uh, a friend of his in school that passed away because of brain cancer at a young
Oh.
age. And out of respect, I reached out to the parents for that one because it was a touchy one. And I asked them about it, and they're excited about it. They can't wait for it to come out because those ones are always touchy. But it's going to honor her. And it's a really good story, and everyone has meanings. And like at the end of the stories, it talks. The little baller gives thought about what happened and how he has to deal with it. And the last therapy book is the little baller could. What happened to my family, which is about the divorce.
Oh my
But now
God.
they're all children friendly. They're through the eyes of a kid. It's not
Yeah.
you know it's nothing bad, but it's a beautiful story with ups and downs of what happened and how they, and again, it's how children deal with it. So my ultimate goal with the little ball there. And there was some people are like, "Isn't that too sad?" I'm like, "Well, you got to understand, this was
No, I think that's
actually
great
children for
because
life." Yeah.
yeah, that's like actual real life things that kids go through. I think that's great that you touch on that.
Yeah, thank you. And that's what it was there for. So I hope that kids can, I tell them because they're, I mean, the other ones is like the big tournament, Welcome to Detroit, schools out, they're all fun about basketball, summer, our spring training and all that. They're all fun ones, but those ones are, but my hope is that you could, a kid that's going through this, whether they have a mother, a brother, a sister, aunt, uncle going through cancer, or for that book, they can see the stories and they can relate to the little baller, and they'd be like, how did the little baller handle this? And there's real stories. And actually, the little baller, "Mama, What's Wrong" is the song that I'm getting done here soon. I have a song of it too. So
Um, so the books are on Amazon
the first
or
one is. So the first one's on Amazon, Kindle, and that, and it's actually getting revised too at the moment. So we
okay.
went with another company, and it's going to be a hard square cover with pictures on both sides. The animation people on this one that's redoing it are phenomenal. So that's the book. Now, end of this year, sometime next year, I'll be doing casting calls probably around the end of this year. I got the screenplay for the first cartoon coming up. Oh, so it's coming to life. So the screenplay is coming up with the first cartoon, and I'm doing casting calls for all. There's a couple adult parts, teenage parts, and then children parts, and from second to fourth grade, because that's the time area what these little ballers were, and that's the cartoon that's coming up. So the first one's the little baller, tale of a little brother, just like but, and that's been a whole different adventure too. Like I had to, you think you write a book, but then like no, you need a screenplay for this. So the animation part can do this. So the voice part can do this, and so
You're
so
making
it's,
big moves, baby.
you got it. I mean, you're moving forward or you're standing still, right?
Yeah. And then you've got your music aspect.
I got my music, and my music is going well. Like I said, the "Mama, What's Wrong" song is actually getting done by Chuck Alcazin when I'm ready, and you probably don't know who he is, but you've heard of
No.
him. He was producer for Soundgarden, Madonna,
Oh.
Tantric, Pop Evil, and all these. Long story how we met up, but he was like, "I love you. I love your stories. I love the book you have. I want to help you out." He's like, "I get it. You're just starting music, but you know what? I want to help you out. I want to see you make your dream come true." And he just did Jelly Roll's new album too. It's like, "I
Oh
want to make your dream
shit.
come." Yeah, he's like, "I want to make your dream come true best I can." So he's like, "Come on down. We'll produce your first song." So I was like, "Wow." Talk about starstruck. I was like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah. We'll come down, and we'll do everything." So I got a lot of projects going on, but again, that's how I dealt with going through what I did because I got to make sure my kids are like, how did dad handle the divorce?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I like the end of the story.
Well,
Um,
it's not done yet. I'm not dead, and it's not happened yet.
true, true. I like where the story's headed. Where can people find your music?
So first song was "Baby Mama," is out right now. That album's coming out, and there's another song on this rap. The rest of it's like a pop club dance songs. It's a four EP. The rest of it, my album "Rising from Ashes" will be released in May, and that's when I'll start playing out. Um, to
What
um,
platform is your music on?
it's on SoundCloud at the moment.
Okay.
SoundCloud's user friendly and easier right now, and YouTube it's on too. The videos on for the Baby Mom is on YouTube, but everything will be on SoundCloud and be getting switched over to multiple platforms when they put the rest of it out. So hopefully it'll be out here soon. Like I said, May is when the albums are gonna drop, and I'll be playing out. But I'm gonna release around February. I'm gonna release. Um, there's we decided to go with the debut song for that album is OFC Ain't No Friend of Mine, which is Friend of the Courts stands for. And it's a really good song. Everybody that listens to it's like, I love it. It's so true. It's great, But the rest of the songs about albums. It's all my music's about motivation, rising above and people kicking you down. You don't stand down, you get up and you just show them. Like, it's all motivation. I mean, there's a couple of them I talk shit and like it wasn't really talking shit in Baby Mama, but it was just calling out the obvious.
Yeah.
So, but you can find it on there. It should be coming up soon. Like I said, the debut song for that album will be coming out in about February.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, every day above ground's a good day. So long as I'm living, I'll be happy. But to be honest, I mean, I have 10 different projects going on right now. If one of them takes off, they'll all take off. If an Adam Sandler can see the cartoon, I can get it on Netflix, if the right person sees my music, maybe I would love to go on tour.
You got big dreams.
I always tell
I
everybody,
love it.
I said, imagine I'll be like the opening band where everybody's going to the bathroom getting beers for a while. I'm trying to play. I can't wait, That's what I want. Because then I can go from there. So,
Yes.
but I mean, if you're going to dream, we might as well dream big, right?
Hell yeah.
So,
Hell yeah. Well, know that you're welcome back anytime. I'm excited to see where your journey takes you. Is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't cover?
No. I really didn't know what to expect on this or what to cover. I just try to cover the best I can.
You did great.
Oh,
You really
thank
did
you.
great.
I appreciate you letting me on. I appreciate everybody listening. I'm sure people have comments or whatever, whether they hate it or not. I don't really care, but thank you for letting me.
It's your story, man. It's your story. I think you're going to help a lot of people too, because this is something that people go through, but not a lot of people talk about because it's so painful. It's painful and it's hard to navigate.
I agree. And it's and sometimes it's a persona people want to hold up. Nothing's wrong. You ever see
Yes.
that what was it, like a meme or something? The whole world's falling apart. It's like I'm good, and the
I'm
whole world's
fine.
falling.
Everything's
Yeah,
fine.
it's fine, but it's not. And you have to sometimes. You have to say everything's fine, even when the world's going wrong, just to make it through. But sometimes you have to just lock your doors, shut your lights off, and just cry out and feel bad for yourself for 1 minute. Otherwise, you're gonna have a meltdown.
And then pick yourself back up.
Yeah, just don't let people see it.
Yeah.
Because then people judge, then people tell you different stuff, and yeah, sometimes I used to tell my kids for the basketball, they'd have a meltdown and say, go to the bathroom, take 10 minutes, or go in the car, take 10 minutes, and have a meltdown. But when you get back, you're 100% here. And they would do it, have a meltdown, they'd cry, then they'd come back. I'm good. Well, good. Now, get back out there and play. Get out there and play now and see how good you are. And
Yeah.
sometimes people just need that time to just have. But the only thing I would tell everybody, if you're going to do it, don't do it on social media. Do it in privacy. Do it with, I've had meltdowns. I have breakdowns, but they do them in privacy, and
Yeah.
that's where it should be, Otherwise, people are going to criticize you.
Yeah, people are cruel.
They are. Sons of bitches, huh?
Yeah. Thank you again, and know that you're welcome back anytime.
I appreciate it. I love to be back on. We can give an update after my album comes out, or just before it comes
Hell
out. Too.
yeah.
And I can share the links at that time too.
Yeah, did I ask for your like, do you have a website?
Right now I just use Facebook and TikTok. I have a friend that's gonna build a website.
Okay.
I have so many
Um,
projects that it's hard just to do one thing because
That's fair.
you know what I mean. So people do help me out. Like, oh, yeah, I'll help you out with that. I'll do this or do that.
Well, feel free, if I didn't already, to put your tag for TikTok, and I think you're already tagged in the video, but if not, I'll go back and make sure.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it.